The only reason a warrior is alive is to fight, and the only reason to fight is to win. Otherwise, why be a warrior? Welcome to the abyss of strategy. Most men live their lives on the defense, waiting for the world to strike them. They are reactive. They are victims. But the masters of power do not wait. They dictate the flow of the river. They understand that to survive in a world of wolves, you must either be the lion who hunts or the stone that breaks the teeth of the predator. Today, we dismantle the mechanics of brutal strategy. On one side, Niccolò Machiavelli, the architect of aggression. He believes that hesitation is death and that the first blow must be the final one. On the other, Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor. He believes that true power lies in an unbreakable mind that absorbs chaos and returns order. This content is an exploration of historical strategy and dark psychology for educational purposes. We analyze the shadows so you can recognize them, not to encourage harm. Use this knowledge wisely. If you are ready to stop reacting and start commanding, subscribe now. Pick your side. The debate begins.
Marcus, look at you, sitting in your tent, writing in your diary while the Marcomanni gather at the borders. Marcus, you mistake patience for virtue, but in the realm of power, hesitation is not a philosophy, it is a death sentence. To wait for the enemy to strike is to hand him the hilt of the blade, while you hold the edge. The first law of brutal strategy is not defense, it is the preemptive strike. If you suspect a man might become a threat, he is already a threat. You do not wait for the cancer to spread, you cut it out while it is small. You call this cruelty? I call it sanitation. The world does not reward the passive observer. It belongs to those who seize the tempo of the conflict. When you strike first, you dictate the reality. You force the enemy to react to your will, to play a game you designed. By the time they realize they are under attack, the war should already be over. Tell me, Emperor, how many Roman lives did your stoic patience cost because you refused to crush a rebellion in its infancy?
You speak of war as if it were a tavern brawl, Niccolò. You are quick to draw blood because you are terrified of your own shadow. You strike first not out of strength, but out of insecurity. True power is not the frantic need to eliminate every potential threat. That is paranoia, and paranoia consumes the ruler long before the assassin does. The fortress that fires at every rustling leaf runs out of arrows before the true siege begins. My strategy is the immutable center. Let them gather, let them plot. When they strike a mountain. A preemptive strike exposes your position, it reveals your intent, and often it creates an enemy where there was only a rival. You waste energy fighting ghosts. I conserve my energy for the reality. To strike first is to admit that you fear the outcome of a fair trial of strength. I do not fear the barbarian at the gate because I have conquered the barbarian within my own mind. If they come, they will break themselves against my discipline like water against rock.
Fair trial of strength? Listen to yourself. There is no fairness in the acquisition of power, only results. This is why you struggle, Marcus. You want to be a good man in a world that is not good. You cling to the moral high ground while your enemies tunnel beneath your feet. Let me give you a toolkit you are too noble to use. The law of necessity. When the survival of your position is at stake, you must suspend your ethics. If a neighboring power grows too strong, you do not wait to see if they are friendly. You destroy them. You dismantle their alliances, you ruin their reputation, and you salt their fields before they can even march. This is the asymmetry of survival. If you wait for the blow, you have already lost the initiative. The injury you inflict must be so severe that you need not fear their vengeance. You tap them with a sword, they will seek revenge. You crush them completely, and you have peace. Your immutable center is just a target practice for a man with the will to act.
And that is why your victories are fleeting, Niccolò. You build a throne on a pile of corpses and wonder why it smells of rot. You crush one enemy, and 3 more rise from the injustice you inflicted. You create a cycle of vengeance that never ends. You are a slave to the future, always anxiously scanning the horizon for the next threat, never able to sit in the present moment. My toolkit is the view from above. I look at the conflict not as a desperate struggle for survival, but as a passing cloud. By refusing to strike first, I claim the moral authority. This is not vanity, it is strategic. When I finally unleash the legions, I do so with the full weight of justice behind me. My soldiers fight with a clear conscience. Yours fight with fear of your treachery. The man who strikes first admits he has lost control of the situation. The man who waits, who absorbs, and who counters with precision, he is the one who holds the true power.
I do not need to destroy the bloodline to be safe. I need only to be unconquerable in my own conduct. Moral authority keeps no one warm in a dungeon, Marcus. You talk of conscience, I talk of consequence. Let's look at the mechanics of the first strike. It is psychological warfare. When you hit an enemy who thought he was safe, you induce a state of shock. You break their OODA loop. Observe, orient, decide, act. They freeze. In that freezing, you win. You claim that striking creates enemies? I say it serves as a grim example to the others. Fear is a more reliable bond than love or respect. Men love at their own free will, but they fear at the will of the prince. By striking first, I control the fear. I become the weather, the inevitable storm that punishes potential betrayal before the thought is even fully formed. You, Marcus, you are the prey that hopes the predator is not hungry. I am the predator who ensures the jungle knows who owns the territory.
You are not a predator, Niccolò. You are a frightened animal snapping at everything that moves. You confuse aggression with strength. Aggression is a leak of energy. Restraint is the containment of power. Think of the archer. If he fires his arrow the moment he sees movement, he misses. He must draw, hold, breathe, and wait for the perfect moment. That holding, that tension, is where the power lies. A preemptive strike is a premature release. You empty your quiver too soon. I hold the tension. I let the enemy wonder, why does he not react? What does he know that I do not? My silence terrifies them more than your violence. Your cruelty is predictable. My indifference is unfathomable. In the end, the man who strikes first is the man who ran out of ideas.
Predictable? Perhaps, but effective? Undeniably. While you are holding the tension, I am holding their territory. While you are breathing, I am executing. The world is not a philosophy class, Marcus. It is a zero-sum game of resources and positioning. If I take the high ground while you are pondering the ethics of climbing, I win. It is that simple. The first strategy is the only strategy that guarantees you fight on your own terms. Anything else is gambling with the whims of fortune, and fortune is a woman who must be beaten and coerced, not courted with patience.
Fortune favors the prepared mind, not the rash hand. You may win the battle, Machiavelli, but you will never win the war because the war is against entropy itself. By adding chaos to the system, you accelerate your own demise. Order, discipline, endurance. These are the weapons of the sovereign. Go ahead, strike first. I will be here when you return, if you return, to bury you.
We have discussed the strike, Marcus. Now let us discuss the blade itself. You govern as if you are afraid of the sight of blood, hoping that half measures will suffice to correct the errors of men. This is the mark of a weak stomach, not a strong mind. The second law of power is surgical cruelty. When you must inflict pain, and you must, for men are wicked creatures who respect only the whip, it must be sudden, severe, and total. You do not cut off the dog's tail an inch at a time to save it from pain. That is torture. You sever it in one blow. That is mercy. That is strategy. When I look at your reign, I see the hesitation of a philosopher. You punish a traitor with exile, and he plots against you from the border. You fine a rebellious noble, and he uses his remaining gold to buy mercenaries. You leave the root in the ground and wonder why the weed returns. My toolkit is simple: the axiom of the final blow. Men will revenge themselves for slight injuries, but they cannot revenge themselves for severe ones. Therefore, the injury you do to a man must be such that you need not fear his vengeance. You must extinguish the line, seize the property, and erase the memory. Do it all at once, in a single day, so the taste of bitterness does not linger on the public tongue.
You sound like a butcher trying to explain anatomy to a surgeon, Niccolò. You confuse violence with resolution. You speak of erasing memory, but history remembers everything. Your surgical cruelty is nothing more than a desperate attempt to silence the world so you can sleep at night. You kill the father, and the son grows up with a fire in his belly that no amount of gold can extinguish. You create martyrs. You turn criminals into symbols. My justice is not based on your neurotic fear of vengeance. It is based on logos, reason. When I punish, I do not do it with anger. I do not do it to send a message. I do it because it is what the law requires to restore the balance of the whole. It is impersonal. Like a stone falling or a fire burning, it simply is. The moment you add your cruelty to the mix, you make it personal. You make yourself the villain in their story. I practice the sword of indifference. If a man must die for the good of Rome, he dies. But I do not desecrate his corpse. I do not hunt his children. I do not enjoy it. I do what is necessary, and then I wash my hands and return to my books. Because I am not an animal. I am a man, and I refuse to let the wickedness of others drag me down into the mud of brutality.
Wash your hands. How Pontius Pilate of you. You want the result without the stain. But power is dirty, Marcus. That is the great lie you tell yourself. You think your impersonal justice earns you respect? It earns you contempt. The mob does not understand logos. They understand spectacle. They understand visceral reality. Let me tell you about Caesar Borgia. When he needed to pacify the Romagna, he appointed a cruel man, Ramiro de Orco, to restore order. Ramiro did the job with blood and iron. But then, to show the people that the cruelty was not his own, Caesar made a move. He had Ramiro cut in 2 pieces and placed in the public square of Cesena, with a block of wood and a bloody knife beside him. The ferocity of this spectacle left the people at once satisfied and stupefied. Stupefied, Marcus! That is the state of mind you want in your subjects. Your dry, boring justice leaves them cold. They need to see the monster slain by a bigger monster. You must be the artist of violence. You must paint the scene so vividly that no one dares to pick up a brush against you. You hide behind the law. I use the law as a stage for my performance.
And look what happened to Caesar. He died alone, raving, betrayed by the very chaos he courted. You worship these moments of theatrical horror as if they are masterpieces, but they are tragedies. You treat human beings as props in a play.
Satisfied and stupefied? Is that how you view your fellow men? As cattle to be shocked into submission? This is why your princes always fall, Niccolò. You build a house on the foundation of trauma. Trauma creates instability. My foundation is duty. When I sentence a man, I often grieve for him, not because I am weak, but because I see the waste of potential. The best revenge is not to be like your enemy. If I answer treachery with monstrous cruelty, I have become the traitor. I have let him infect my soul. You think I am boring? Good. The foundation of an empire should be boring. It should be solid, predictable, reliable. Your surgical cruelty reveals your own internal chaos. You believe that because you are chaotic, the world requires chaos to be governed. But the world craves order, real order, not the silence of the graveyard that you offer, but the harmony of a functioning city. I do not need to cut men in half to be obeyed. A look from me is enough. That is the difference between a prince and an emperor.
A look is enough, until the Praetorian Guard decides they prefer a different look. You are naive, old man. You speak of duty and harmony, while your legions are rotting on the Danube. You are too high up in the clouds to see the rats gawing at your throne.
Let's discuss the toolkit of necessity. There is a time for humanity, and there is a time for the beast. A wise ruler knows how to be both. You are stuck being a man. I teach the prince to be the centaur, half man, half beast. When the laws are insufficient, you must use force. And if you use force, do not apologize for it. You say I make it personal. I say I make it final. You leave wounds open to fester in the name of humanity. I cauterize them with fire. Yes, it hurts. Yes, it smells of burning flesh. But the patient lives. The state survives. You would let the patient die of gangrene just so you can say you were a gentle doctor. That is not virtue. That is malpractice. The execution must be terrible so that it does not need to be repeated. Your impersonal punishments happen again and again, a slow drip of misery. My way is a sudden storm, and then sunshine.
There is no sunshine after your storm, only the gray sky of tyranny. You speak of the state as a patient, but you treat it like a victim. You cauterize healthy flesh because you see rot everywhere. You are projecting your own corruption onto the world. You call me a gentle doctor? I spent my life in armor. I have sent thousands to their deaths in defense of Rome. But I did it with a heavy heart, not a gleeful hand. I did it because it was my role in the cosmos, not to secure my personal power. The toolkit of the Stoic teaches us amor fati, love of fate. But it also teaches memento mori, remember you will die. When I stand over the condemned man, I see myself. We are both dust. This perspective keeps me from becoming the monster you admire. You think cruelty shows strength? No, self-control shows strength. To have the power to destroy everything and choose to destroy only what is necessary, and to do it without passion. That is the highest form of strategy. It makes you untouchable. Your cruelty makes you a target. My justice makes me a monument.
Monuments crumble, Marcus. Fear lasts. You speak of the cosmos, I speak of the street corner. You speak of dust, I speak of gold and iron. If you cannot be both loved and feared, it is safer to be feared. Love is held by a chain of obligation, which, because men are wicked, is broken at every opportunity for their own self-interest. But fear is preserved by a dread of punishment, which never fails. Your heavy heart is a luxury. A ruler cannot afford the weight of feelings. You must be light, adaptable, and sharp. If you must kill, do it with a smile or a scowl. It doesn't matter, as long as the head comes off. The people do not care about your internal struggle. They care about cheap bread and safe streets. If We arrive at the end, Marcus. The enemy is broken. Their lines are shattered. Now comes the moment that separates the conqueror from the amateur, the finish. You, with your high-minded ideals, would likely offer a treaty. You would extend a hand to the fallen, hoping that mercy will buy loyalty. You are a fool. The third law of power is scorched earth. When you defeat an enemy, you do not leave them with the resources to rebuild. You do not leave them with hope. You burn the fields, you salt the earth, and you dismantle their gods. History teaches us that a defeated enemy who is allowed to recover will return with a hatred 10 times stronger than before. Look at Carthage. Rome did not just defeat Carthage, they deleted it. They razed it to the ground so that it existed only as a warning in the history books. That is peace, Marcus. Peace is the absence of opposition. My toolkit here is the void of silence. You must create a silence so profound that no whisper of rebellion can survive in it. You win by ensuring that there is no next time. You take their children, you rewrite their history, and you force them to speak your language. Victory is not complete until the loser's identity is erased.
And this is why your victories are nothing but pauses between wars. You confuse destruction with dominion. You think that by burning the world, you own the ashes. But you cannot rule over a graveyard, Niccolò. A king without subjects is just a man standing alone in the mud. My strategy is reintegration. The ultimate victory is not to destroy the enemy, but to turn him into a friend, or at least a productive component of the whole. When I defeat a tribe, I do not erase them. I absorb them. I give them Roman citizenship. I let them keep their gods, provided they bow to ours. I turn their warriors into my auxiliaries. This is the law of expansion. You shrink your empire by destroying resources. I expand mine by assimilating them. You speak of Carthage? Look at the cost. It took generations of blood. I look at the Pax Romana. It was built on the back of integration, not just annihilation. If you use Scorched Earth, you guarantee that every future enemy will fight to the death, because they know surrender means extinction. You leave them no golden bridge to retreat across. You force them to be desperate, and desperate men are dangerous.
Desperate men are easy to kill if you have the stomach for it. You worry about future enemies. I worry about the present reality. You offer citizenship to barbarians and wonder why Rome fell from within? You diluted the wine until it was just water. You let the wolves into the sheepfold because you were too arrogant to lock the gate. Let's talk about the psychology of the void. When you completely obliterate a rival faction, you send a shockwave through the collective psyche of the world. You demonstrate virtù, ruthless competence. Other nations look at the smoking crater that used to be your enemy, and they decide, quite rationally, not to cross you. It is an economy of violence. By spending a lot of violence in one specific place, I save myself from having to use it everywhere else. You, Marcus, you fight the same rebellions year after year because you never finish the job. You prune the branches. I dig up the roots. You want to be the good emperor. I want to be the last prince standing. If I have to rule over ashes, so be it. Ashes do not plot treason.
Ashes do not plot treason, but they also do not pay taxes. They do not grow grain. They do not build roads. You are a parasite, Niccolò. You consume the host to sustain your own ego. You call it virtù, I called it weakness. It is the weakness of a man who cannot build, only destroy. My toolkit is the inner citadel. Even if I lose the battle, even if I'm the one facing the scorched earth, I remain unconquered, because my mind is my own. But when I win, I practice clemency. Not out of softness, but out of strength. To have the power to kill and choose life, that demonstrates a control superior to your tantrum of destruction. You say I diluted Rome? I extended it. I made the world Roman. You would make your city a fortress, isolated and paranoid. The outcome of your strategy is that you die clutching your gold, surrounded by silence, terrified of the ghost of every man you wronged. The outcome of mine is a legacy that survives for millennia. You fight for the moment. I fight for eternity.
Eternity is a long time to be dead, Marcus. You are obsessed with how you will be remembered. I am obsessed with staying alive. Legacy is a rumor spread by old women. Power is a fact. Let us look at the mechanism of the end game. When the war is done, you must control the narrative. The victor writes the history. If I leave survivors, they will write their own stories. They will sing songs of their martyrs. They will keep the ember of hatred glowing under the ash. I cannot allow that. I advocate for the total reset. New laws, new customs, new leaders, even new names for the cities. It must be as if the previous regime never existed. This requires brutality, yes, but it is a creative brutality. It clears the canvas for your own masterpiece. You are too sentimental. You keep the old statues up. I smash them and melt the bronze to cast my own cannons. You preserve the past. I secure the future.
You cannot kill an idea with a cannon, Niccolò. You can melt the statues, but the memory remains in the blood, in the whispers, in the very land itself. By trying to suppress it, you give it power. You make it forbidden, and therefore desirable. You speak of a total reset? That is the fantasy of a tyrant. The world is a river. You cannot stop the flow, you can only guide it. My approach is amor fati applied to victory. I accept what has happened, I take what is useful, and I discard what is harmful, without emotion. I do not need to rewrite history because I am not afraid of the truth. If my enemy was brave, I honor his bravery. Why? Because it elevates my victory. To defeat a noble enemy makes me noble. To slaughter a helpless remnant makes me a butcher. You degrade your own achievements by acting like a cornered rat even when you have won. You have no dignity, Machiavelli, only survival instincts.
Dignity is the costume of the loser. At least we fought with honor, they say, as they are marched to the gallows. I would rather be a live rat than a dead lion. You elevate your enemy. You create myths for them. You do their propaganda for them. This is why the Stoics are extinct and the Machiavellians run the world's boardrooms and parliaments. We understand that the game never ends. There is no final victory unless you ensure there is no one left to play against you. You see the world as a community of rational souls. I see it as a dark forest of predators. If I burn the forest down, at least I can see who is coming for me. Call it what you want. I call it peace through superior firepower.
And that is why you will always be alone. You burn the forest and then complain there is no shade. You destroy the game and then complain there is no glory. You run the world's boardrooms? Perhaps. but you are miserable in them. You are ulcers on the soul of humanity. I may be extinct, as you say, but my words offer solace to millions. Your words offer only a blueprint for anxiety. Go ahead, burn the earth. But remember, nature always returns. The grass grows over the ruin. The tyrant dies in his bed, screaming at phantoms. The philosopher dies with a smile, returning to the nature that bore him. I have done my duty. I have kept the line. You have only kept your score. And in the end, the score is erased by time. Only the character remains.
Eternity is a long time to be dead, Marcus. You are obsessed with how you will be remembered. I am obsessed with staying alive. Legacy is a rumor spread by old women. Power is a fact. Let us look at the mechanism of the end game. When the war is done, you must control the narrative. The victor writes the history. If I leave survivors, they will write their own stories. They will sing songs of their martyrs. They will keep the ember of hatred glowing under the ash. I cannot allow that. I advocate for the total reset. New laws, new customs, new leaders, even new names for the cities. It must be as if the previous regime never existed. This requires brutality, yes, but it is a creative brutality. It clears the canvas for your own masterpiece. You are too sentimental. You keep the old statues up. I smash them and melt the bronze to cast my own cannons. You preserve the past. I secure the future.
You cannot kill an idea with a cannon, Niccolò. You can melt the statues, but the memory remains in the blood, in the whispers, in the very land itself. By trying to suppress it, you give it power.
The dust settles. Two paths lie before you. Machiavelli offers you the sword of the preemptive strike, a path of high energy, constant vigilance, and total elimination of threats. It is the strategy of the survivor who refuses to be a victim, burning the forest to save his own skin. Marcus offers you the shield of the inner citadel, a path of immense endurance, where power comes not from what you destroy, but from what you can withstand. It is the strategy of the sovereign who conquers the world by first conquering himself. One seeks to control the external world through fear. The other seeks to control the internal world through discipline. Now the choice is yours. Who did you identify with most? With the ruthless pragmatism of Machiavelli, or with the stoic resilience of Marcus? Comment your allegiance below. Like the video if you want more debates. Choose your side.